Today's Advancing Oceanside podcast is sponsored by FrontWave Credit Union. FrontWave Credit Union fights for their members, those dedicated to country and community, family and friends, for banking, lending, saving, planning, dream big. They got you. They're FrontWave Credit Union, and they've been making financial dreams come true since 1952. Check them out at frontwavecu.com. Hello and welcome to the Advancing Oceanside podcast. My name is Scott Ashton, and I'm your host today. I am very excited that today for our interview, we have Maria Mingalone, the Executive Director of the Oceanside Museum of Art. How are you, Maria?
I'm doing great, Scott. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, we are here to learn about the Oceanside Museum of Art, but before we do that, tell us a little bit about yourself. What brought you to Southern California and to the Oceanside Museum of Art?
Well, actually, the Oceanside Museum of Art brought me to Southern California. I was living and working in Western Massachusetts. I worked at a museum there where I was the Director of Curatorial Affairs and Collections. Actually, I had been there for 14 years, so I had 3 different positions, and I also was the acting director during a leadership transition. And I was recruited to apply to the position, the executive director position at Oceanside Museum of Art. I didn't know where Oceanside was, so I did my research and I was brought out to do some interviewing and fell in love with the region, fell in love with the museum. And so, 4 years later, here we are.
That's great. Well, we're very glad to have you in Oceanside, and we know you've been an important contributor to our community, and even serving on the board of directors at the chamber. So we love having you at the table and your perspective. So can you tell us a little bit about the history of OMA?
Sure. It's a really great story, and it was one of the reasons that I did fall in love with this institution. It was created by community members a little over 20 years ago, during a period of time when the city was really looking to transition its perception in the region. There was a lot of redevelopment going on, and the current mayor at the time charged a number of community residents to come up with some kind of a cultural something. It could have been a theater, a performing arts center, it was a wide open platform. And so these can-do community residents pulled together. They did their research. They looked what was around in the neighboring communities, and then they decided on a art museum. And so through their essentially, let's say, sheer will and their community partnering, they pulled it off. They created a museum for the city of Oceanside. Some of those community residents were doing that because they were so committed to the city of Oceanside, and they were essentially some of the community residents who were part of it. They wanted to create an art experience in their own backyard, so they didn't have to drive to Los Angeles or to San Diego to have a quality art experience. Others were really more interested in community building, so they wanted to create something really special for the city of Oceanside in order to create some destination status and to uplift the profile of the community. And I don't know if at the time they were really thinking that they were going to also be creating an economic engine, like something that was going to really bring back, give back to the local economy as well. So it's a really great story. And unlike some museums that are founded, as vanity projects, this is a vanity project for the city and for the people of Oceanside.
Great, and we're going to get a little bit more into the economics of it. But first, I'm really interested in your perspective on COVID-19, how it impacted your overall operations for this past year, and what did you learn that's going to help you in the long run?
Well, one of the things that we did learn is resilience, right? And you have to really have, in some ways, you have to have a creative spirit, which is helpful. We're an art museum and a lot of the staff have art backgrounds. I was trained as an artist and I know a number of the other staff were as well. So we do know how to, in a way, be very creative in problem solving. Also in terms of resilience, I think you need to be a little scrappy. You have to have some grit we decided it wasn't good enough for us to just go home and wait out. So we really felt persevering and really kind of taking our mission to heart. What's the core to our mission? And so serving our community really is a core to our mission. And so we experimented with new ways to connect to audiences. I mean, we've all used the word pivot, so often at this point. I think, if you did a cloud burst of how often that word comes up, it would be dramatic. Mm-hmm. But in any case, we just decided, how can we continue to serve our community? How can we continue to be resilient? How can we continue to really provide access to a cultural experience? And I think what we learned was, always go back to your mission. So our mission really is to educate, enlighten, and innovate. And so that's what we did over this time period. And I think it's proven to be successful in the sense that a lot of cultural organizations are really hurting. Across the nation, there's predictions of about 30% of museums fail. And so we are not in a position financially of closing. It's tight. We're working really hard to stay relevant to our community members, to stay relevant to our Oceanside Museum of Art members, so that they can continue to remember us and keep the museum in their hearts as well. So that we're in partnership with everyone in order to make it through this.
Great. So hey, can you talk a little bit about the economic impacts that the arts have had on Oceanside in, let's say, like the last decade?
Sure. I think I also serve on the Arts Commission, and we are looking to do an economic impact survey with Americans for the Arts. That's a national arts advocacy group, and they do economic impact surveys across the country. One of the more recent ones that they've done, where they compile and aggregate the results of those surveys. So they come up with what the average cultural participant would spend if they're a local resident or if they are from out of town. And this is not including their participation in whatever that cultural event might be. So it includes the purchase of, say, a ticket to a theater production. It doesn't include admissions to a museum. But the average person will spend over $12, and old numbers. So I'm using older numbers for when they come, if they're a resident. But if they're a non-resident, it's closer to $15. So if we were to multiply out the 25,000 participants that we have at the museum, and that's not including special events, and that's not including education participants for our education programs, we bring in well over $500,000 of economic activity into the city. So if you include then also the salaries, which is a little more than, like, probably about half of our annual budget, you're looking at more than $1 million that we would bring into the local economy. So I don't think that's insignificant. I think that's a really important, those are important figures for us from an economic standpoint. Of course, a museum and a cultural experience is also a quality of life standpoint. It has that it adds to not only the quality of life of local residents, but it helps bring business. I mean, the profile of a community, a company will look at that for what they can offer to their potential employees. So I think there are lots of ways to look at what a local museum can bring to a community.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Since the beginning of your time here in Oceanside, you've been talking about the economics of the arts, and I think that's something that has been really overlooked in the past. So thank you for bringing that perspective to it. So what do you see as the greatest future opportunity in Oceanside related to arts and culture?
Ooh, good question. I would say that there's something that we, and I know many people are proud of the fact that we are one of the original 14 cohorts that were selected by the state of California to be a cultural district. And I have been so, I'm proud of that, along with the other lead partners, the library, Main Street Oceanside, also Visit Oceanside. And then I think it's gotten the attention of people. I think it's gotten attention of our civic leaders. I think it's gotten the attention of our business community because it's such a, I think, an honored designation, but it also, and it comes from the state. So somehow that it really has it's attracted people's attention. And I think that building that cultural district, really making sure that we live to the truth of its purpose, which is to celebrate the diversity of our community and to also celebrate the economic impact that the arts can have. So it's kind of a dual purpose. And so we are really, I think that's a really important future, something that we can build on. And what's so perfect about it right now is that it fits perfectly into the city's cultural master plan. So that's actually something new too. So we have these, the cultural master plan was adopted in, oh gosh, now I want to say it was 2018 or 2019. We haven't had an opportunity to launch it in a public way. We were going to do that this spring, but because of the pandemic, we obviously held off on that gathering. But the cultural master plan is also, I think it is literally the first cultural master plan for the city of Oceanside. And that's huge. That is something that we can fall back on all the time in terms of leading us in the way that we want to use art and culture as a way to partner with our civic leaders, with our business community, with our community residents in moving forward, building a really healthy and vibrant community. And so I think both the cultural and our designation as a cultural district are two really important tools that we can use in so many diverse ways.
Great, thank you for sharing that. And that's there are some exciting things for us to look forward to once we get into the next year and beyond. So, so what would you say is OMA's role in the region's art community?
I would say that we are a critical cultural hub. We are. We really hold us. I was talking to a California Arts Commissioner yesterday, and he said, you guys, you keep it together. You're holding the northern boundary of San Diego County. So we are, I mean, think about the cultural landscape in the community, and so many of the institutions are focused in and around Balboa Park and down in the San Diego, the city boundaries of San Diego. But of course, here we are in the northern part of San Diego County. So we play a really important role here. We play an important role for our city, which we've been talking about, but we play an important role regionally as well. That we are, so I think that, access to our culture is, I believe, is a human. I don't think it's a luxury, and I don't think it's something just for elite people. There are so many ways that people benefit by participating in the arts, whether they're adults, and I could just go on and on for how it is for young people and their own development. We play this critical role here in our region. We're holding ground. We are a beacon for where I consider ourselves a cultural hub right here in North County, San Diego. But we also play an even stronger role if we look at we bring in folks that come from Orange County, Riverside County, LA County, as well. So I like to say that we're building destination status along the cultural corridor from Los Angeles, from LA to TJ. And I think that that's really true.
Okay, great. And so my final question is, can you share a little bit about who benefits from the museum's programming and how?
Sure. So we have a very diverse audience. We'd like to continue to diversify our audience, though, and I'll go into that in a few minutes. Currently, we have about 50% of our attendants are from Oceanside, and then I would say there is overall from San Diego County, it's about 80%, or maybe a little more, is our San Diego County, so outside of Oceanside. And then we do get between about 18% come from neighboring counties, so Orange County, Riverside County, Los Angeles, and then that other remaining 2%, they come from out of state. So that's kind of the profile of the audience. We do serve a huge number of students. So we have two signature programs in partnership with the Oceanside Unified School District. One is called Literacy Through Art, where we're working in partnership with the Oceanside Public Library, the school district, Oceanside Promise. And Oceanside Promise had identified a critical issue in our community, which is early childhood literacy, and how our young people going into third grade are testing below proficient levels. And we're working in partnership to do some interesting outside of the box programming, where we use sort of the rich narrative that you can read into a work of art as a way to build students' skills at literacy skills. And so that's a really, and we serve every third grader in all of the elementary schools. We also have a science and art, integrated science art curriculum that's for fifth graders. And again, using art as a way to enhance classroom learning with connecting to the creativity and the problem solving skills that you learn when you're doing creative activity, and apply that to their science curriculum. And so overall, we serve about 3,000 of our local students. And then on top of that, we were having, of course, this year is an anomaly, we were having students that come and do classroom visits from other school districts around the region. So we really are committed to education. It's core to our mission. And it is something that we've really, and you have to remember that our students, a lot of the students in our region, we did a survey, over 88% of this had never been to a museum before. So we're also providing a different exposure above and beyond the classroom learning that we're partnering with. So students and that education, and then that population spread that I shared with you. And then we do a number of diverse programs, but we feel like we can do more. And with the current issues that are happening across the country with racial justice, and also we are aware of the inequities, cultural inequities as well. So we are putting together diversity, equity, inclusion, and access training internally with the staff and the board as well. So we're looking to diversify so that we can also be a critical play a critical role in solving those issues.
Okay. Well, Maria, it's evident that the Oceanside Museum of Art has a huge impact on our community from a variety of perspectives. So for our audience members that are interested in learning more about your programming or how they can support the museum, what website should they go to?
So they should go to www.oma-online.org.
Okay.
And
great.
They can also go to #Museum at Home, and they can see a lot of the programming that we've been doing. So they can look back in the archives of some programming we've been doing. And we have two really exciting programs coming up. One is Art After Dark, Night of the Living Art, which is going to be we have a signature event, Art After Dark, that people love going to. We, of course, can't in person, but we're doing a virtual wearable art fashion show, and that's October 31st. Okay. So if they go to our Instagram or Facebook, they'll learn about that. And that's a great way to support the museum. And then, of course, any donations are always helpful. Our membership is a critical part of our continuity and stability. So becoming a member of your local museum is also a great way to support the museum. You know, we're working really, really hard to stay relevant. We're working really hard to stay financially viable. We want to be here so that we can be here in full force for the recovery of our community.
Great. Well, Maria, thank you for taking time to join us for our Advancing Oceanside podcast. And thank you for the work that you are doing to truly advance our community. So thanks, Maria.
Very welcome. And I have a great team. So it's a team effort for sure. So I want to do a shout out to their hard work too. So thanks.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Scott. Thanks.